Arnold Schwarzenegger was notorious for fondling just about any female who came in range. He was nicknamed the Octopus. Warning: this content may be upsetting or disturbing to some audiences. All characters in this video, even those based on real people, are entirely fictional. What celebrity has skeletons in their closet that we have all just seemed to forget about? In 2007, Boy George invited a male escort over for a photography session. Then, without consent, handcuffed him to the wall, beat him with a chain and threatened him with sex toys. Alden Carlson managed to free himself and ran to a police station in his underwear for help. So false imprisonment, assault and battery. He was sent to prison, but now he's out. Boy George is still on TV. How? The singer of Aerosmith took legal custody of a teenager so he can have sex with her and then told her to abort their child. When people found out, he told her to keep her big mouth shut. She said, "Look who's talking." Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin also had a fondness for 14 to 15-year-old girls. He took a 14-year-old on tour with him back in the 70s, but that was with her parents' blessing. What the hell? Iggy Pop did pretty much the same thing. Johnny Cash was responsible for starting a fire that destroyed a national condor reserve. 49 of 51 of the birds were killed. He was sued by the state and lost. This was 1965, California, Los Padres Forest. Someone said at this time there were only 110 Californian condors in existence. The fire was accidental, but due to negligence. Former NBA player Karl Malone impregnated a 13-year-old girl and refused to pay child support. A lot of people don't know truly how large of a butthole he is. Mark Wahlberg was a violent racist who badly assaulted multiple people, including a blind Vietnamese guy. People have mentioned a few Elvis things, but no one said anything about how he would meet up with the heads of his fan club, who were primarily underage girls, for slumber parties where he allegedly molested them. He also met his future wife Priscilla when she was 14 and he was 24. They began dating pretty much straight away, to the horror of her parents. They maintained they did not have sex till their wedding night, when she was 22. I'm 28 and can barely relate or talk to a 21-year-old, because I notice how startlingly young they are. I have friendships with 23-year-olds, not many, literally like 2. But I really could not imagine dating anyone under 24 at this point, simply due to the mental and emotional immaturity and the lack of life experience and understanding that can only come with age. I understand many people 20 plus do find happy relationships with people older than them. I'm not doubting that. I'm doubting that Elvis ever had anything in common with Priscilla, and that he wasn't constantly reminded of what a child she still was just by talking to her. Him pursuing her in spite of all that is foul. Terrence Howard, of Iron Man 1 and Empire fame, I guess Hustle and Flow, too? Does anyone remember that film? Is clinically psychotic. He and his wife spend up to 17 hours a day twisting wire and cut pieces of plastic together in their living room in order to prove that 1 by 1 equals 2 because reasons. Also enjoys a good wife slap-in. R. Kelly, married a 15-year-old, made a P-sex tape with a 14-year-old and has had numerous underage girls accused him of rape. John McAfee is suspected of ordering a hit on his neighbor in Belize. He also set in motion the crime against humanity that is McAfee antivirus, though he does claim no attachment to it. McAfee is a Class A nut. His father was an abusive alcoholic who committed suicide when John was 15, and that incident left John with a deeply paranoid and damaged psyche. In the mid-60s, when he was a college student, he ran a scam involving fake magazine subscriptions where he went door to door telling people they won a free year subscription to a magazine, and only had to pay the shipping fees. He would spend the money he bilked from people on booze and tuition for a PhD before he got kicked out of school in 1968, for having sex with an undergrad from a class he taught. He made fake resumes to help him get jobs, like at Missouri Pacific Railroad, where he would optimize train schedules while tripping balls on LSD, until he abruptly quit after a bad drug trip. Then he moved to Silicon Valley in the 70s and worked various jobs, all while strung out on booze, coke, Quaaludes, and anything else he could put in his system. And this was all before founding the McAfee Company in 1987. Salman Khan is still enjoying his career even after running his car over 3 pedestrians. The director of the Jeepers Creepers franchise, Victor Slava, is a convicted child molester who filmed his assault of a child. Not to forget that Disney hired him to direct Powder right after he completed his parole for molesting the child star of his first film and for possessing child pornography. A naked 16-year-old girl had on Quaaludes and cocaine at the Eagles' Don Henley's house. She wasn't his daughter. He had an affair with Stevie Nicks and she immediately got pregnant. He insisted on an abortion and she was devastated. Rob Lowe made a sex tape with a 16-year-old girl. However, Rob Lowe seemed like the one who was most sincerely apologetic for his actions. He went through great lengths to repair both himself as a person, he was an alcoholic and likely substance abuser, and his public image. You never really hear people badmouth Rob Lowe outside of the sex tape, and by every account I've read of people claiming to have met him, he seems like a good dude. Oh, and the girl he had sex with was legal age within the jurisdiction the tape was recorded. Rob Lowe was only 24 at the time, and he even volunteered himself for a legal binding community service despite the likelihood that none of the charges would have stuck regardless. That's probably why it's not as big of a deal as it could have been. CJ Demoe. For those who aren't familiar, in the UK there is a TV quiz contest called Eggheads in which a team of quizzers from the general public are pitched against the finest quiz brains in the ultimate team. Demoe was one of this team. In 2016 he wrote his autobiography in which he described punching a drug-addicted homeless guy into a canal in Amsterdam. Apparently this guy died and the Amsterdam police had been looking for the killer way back when it happened. As soon as he wrote it he was issued a European arrest warrant, but a Westminster court judge got him out of it as he hadn't been arrested in the UK. Ted Nugent is a pedophile who openly had sex with girls in elementary school while he was in his 20s and 30s, legally adopted his underage girlfriend, spread STDs to them, and found it funny. He even wrote songs about it, from his 1981 album. Well, I don't care if you're just 13. You look too good to be true. I just know that you're probably clean. There's one little thing I gotta do to you. One of his old bandmates reported that he'd get obviously underage girls drunk after shows and would slide his hands down their pants to comment on girls who didn't have pubic hair yet. Courtney Love recounted giving him a blowjob when she was 12, and when asked about it he said, "I don't remember." Laura Bush, wife of George W. Bush, ran a stop sign with her car when she was a 17-year-old high school student and struck a car driven by a high school star athlete, killing him. She was known for her recklessness behind the wheel. Actor Matthew Broderick was driving in Northern Ireland and crossed the centre line, striking a car driven by a 30-year-old woman and occupied by her mother who was a passenger, killing both of them. He got off with a little more than slap on the hand. Rodney Atkins, country singer, sings the song, "Watching You," tried to murder his wife by smothering her to death while his 10-year-old was watching and was cleared of domestic assault after he took anger management classes. John Lennon was an admitted woman beater. The principal from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Jeffrey Jones, was busted for having child porn and for soliciting teens for child porn photo shoots. He is currently a registered sex offender. It was allegedly associated with Paul Rubens, but they did not find any child porn in his porn stash. Rivers Cuomo, the lead singer of Weezer, has a lot of rumors surrounding him and his love of underage girls. I'm surprised Bryan Singer isn't mentioned considering he is a pedo party mansion and has been accused of misconduct. He's still pumping out material because I guess that's okay in Hollywood. Roman Polanski invited a 13-year-old girl to Jack Nicholson's house for a photoshoot and gave her alcohol and drugs. Then raped her anally. Then fled the US, up to this day he hasn't returned. Eric Clapton wrote Layla, mainly about wanting to F George Harrison's wife. He later went on to write Wonderful Tonight, about George Harrison's now ex-wife, who was now Clapton's wife. Also, at the same time, somewhere between 1970 to 72, that Eric Clapton was thinking about having sex with George Harrison's wife, George Harrison was having sex with Ringo Starr's wife. Yikes. I had almost forgot to mention Clapton's racist rant about keeping Britain white at a concert in 1976. I believe someone linked it in one of the responses. And for those who included letting his 4-year-old son fall out of his window, which is what he wrote Tears in Heaven about, I thought about that but then did a bit of research, and I don't think Clapton was actually there when that happened, and his son was under the supervision of his wife's friends. Caitlyn Jenner. As Bruce Jenner killed a lady by driving dangerously, using a phone, speeding, whilst towing and crashing his huge SUV into this lady's car. Changed gender and didn't even get in trouble for it. Everyone says she's so brave, but really deserves 10+ years in jail for manslaughter. Arnold Schwarzenegger was notorious for fondling just about any female who came in range. He was nicknamed the Octopus. When a female reporter complained and outed him in an article, He had his agency retaliate against her by refusing to let any of their stars interview with her. Problematic for an entertainment journalist. Sean Penn beat up Madonna when he was married to her. Here's an excerpt from an article on the subject. After he got good and drunk, again, Penn climbed into Madonna's house, where she was alone. He then grabbed her, tied her to a chair, and assaulted her for hours, both physically and emotionally. He then went out for more booze, came back, and kept up the beating. Madonna only escaped after telling Penn that she had to go to the bathroom, which meant he had no problem battering, beating, bloodying, and bruising the supposed love of his life, but felt it would have been too degrading to make her pee in front of him. In 1992, Tupac was attacked by a mob of people threatening him because he had earlier said something negative about Marin City. It began to get violent, so he pulled a pistol. He was then punched, causing him to drop the pistol. Someone then picked it up and fired above the crowd to scare them away. The bullet hit a small kid riding his bike nearby, killing him. The gun was proven to belong to Tupac, but it was never proven if he was the one who fired it. Tom Hanks once signed an email with "Regards" rather than "Best regards." Thanks for listening to another episode of Radio TTS. Hit the subscribe button and activate the bell for more real-life stories. And remember, celebrity worship is the religion of our times. Let me know more examples in the comments below.